Hello students, today we are going to be looking at the history of the Old English period, also known as the Anglo-Saxon period. This is the first page of a text from the Old English period. This is the first paragraph of Beowulf, one of those sagas that we all know of from the Old English period. When you look at the text, it is clear that almost none of the letters are recognizable, none of the words are recognizable. It has nothing in similarity with the English that we know of. Let's hear how it sounds.
What we gardena in year dahum Theod Keninga Trimje Frunon Hu da Athelingas Ellen Fremedon Hoofd shield chafing Sja thena tretum Munium meethum Meure settler of Tea Esor erlas Schitten erest werth Verschaft funden, he das frofreie Bad, Weux under Woknum, Worth mundum tah, Woth that him flitch, Thara imsetendra, Offer huron rade, Huren shoulder, Gomben yilden, that was good kenning.
This is the first paragraph of a text from the Middle English period. This is the first part of the prologue to the Canterbury Tales written by Chaucer. Here you can see that some of the letters are uh, recognizable, some of the words we know. Let's hear how it sounds.
One that April with his sure suit, the dracht of March has purset to the root, and bathed every wine in switch liquor, of which whereto engendered is the flour. One Zephyrus eke with his sweeter breath, in spirit hath in every holt and heath, the tendere cropis and the younge sonne, hath in the ram his half cause Euronne, and smaller foles maken melodie, that slippen all the night with open ear, so pricketh him nachar in her courages, then longen folk to go on pilgrimages, and palmers for to second strondes, to fern halves, couth in sondri londes, and specially from every sheer's end of England to Canterbury they wend, the holy blissful martyr for to sake, that him hath holpen, one that they were seeking.
And finally, this is a part of a text from the modern English period. This is Shakespeare's sonnet 18, Shall I Compare Thee to a Summer's Day. Here we see that almost all the letters are similar to the modern English letters, are present day letters in English, except for maybe the V in lovely and S in shake. And the spellings are a little different. That's all. Let's hear how it sounds.
Sonnet 18. Shall I compare thee to a summer's day? Thou art more lovely and more temperate. Rough winds do shake the darling buds of May, and summer's lease hath all too short a date. Sometime too hot the eye of heaven shines, and often is his gold complexion dimmed, and every fair from every fair sometime declines, by chance or nature's changing course untrimmed. But thy eternal summer shall not fade, nor lose possession of that fair thou owest, nor shall death brag thou wanderest in his shade, when in eternal lines to time thou growest. So long as men can breathe or eyes can see, so long lives this, and this gives life to thee.
Spencer. The English language has three distinct stages of development. The first stage is the Old English period from 600 AD to 1100 AD. Then comes the Middle English period from 1100 AD to 1500 AD. and finally it is the modern English period from 1500 AD to the present. There is no particular demarcation between these periods that says that the next period started exactly at this point, but certain events in history have given this kind of a demarcation, have given this kind of a difference between the periods. Something happened in 450 AD, and something happened in 1066 AD, and something happened in 1453 AD. So in 450 AD, the hordes of tribal groups from northern Germany, they came, they invaded from mainland Europe, they invaded England, and they settled there. This is the statue of a very famous ruler of that time, of that Old English period. He was King Alfred the Great. So from 43 AD to 410 AD, the Romans occupied Britain, but they did not have a lasting impact on language. They stayed there, the soldiers stayed there, they did not assimilate with the people living there, and then they left in 410 AD. In 450 AD, up until 600 AD, groups of and hordes of tribes from the North Germanic area of Europe, they invaded and England, and they settled there. So the Angles and the Saxons, they established power and language in Britain during this time. And what happened in 1066 AD was that William the Conqueror from Normandy, he invaded England, and it was what was called as the Norman Conquest. And they settled in England. They assimilated with the people, and what it led to what was called as the Middle English period. In 1453 AD, the siege of Constantinople happened. That is, Sultan Mohamed from the Ottoman Empire, he attacked Constantinople, and those scholars who were there in Constantinople, which is present day Istanbul, took whatever they could of the books and everything, and they knew that if it was left there, everything would be destroyed. So whatever they could take, they took it with them on their boats, and they traveled to mainland Europe and settled in Germany, Italy, and the areas surrounding that those countries. So this is the siege of Constantinople. Certain things happened that led to changes sweeping across the world. So the first thing was the Renaissance that happened. All these scholars who brought the books from Constantinople, they urged the people here to start learning, to give importance to learning again. And there was a revival of the classical languages of Latin and Greek. There was learning across various areas. An example of this is the Renaissance man himself, Leonardo da Vinci. His painting is Mona Lisa. The other painting is The Last Supper. Leonardo da Vinci was not only a painter, he was an inventor, a scientist, a writer. So he was a polymath. And then the invention of the printing press by Gutenberg was another important event in history. Because of that, many people across the world were able to read, not just the elite aristocratic class. Most of the people were able to afford books, which was not the scenario before that. And then in religion also something happened, changes happened. Martin Luther in Germany, he nailed his theses, 95 theses, to the Wittenberg Church, questioning the practices of the Catholic Church. And once he was excommunicated, he started what is known as Lutheranism, and it was the starting of the Protestant religion. And in England also certain things happened that led to huge sweeping changes. There had been a war between two houses, the House of York and House of Lancaster, which was devastating for the whole country. But with Henry Tudor coming to the throne, there was something of peace and security. The country was no longer at war. Things were going back to normal. After Henry Tudor, one of the important monarchs was Queen Elizabeth I. Her reign is known as the golden age of literature. It led to the golden age of literature. It was one of those golden ages where everything was good across the country. We know that during the time only great playwrights like Shakespeare, and great writers and poets, Sydney and Spencer, were able to flourish. So, also, England had come to be known as a nation which had power and influence during this time. So let's go back to the history of Old English period. So the earliest inhabitants of Britain were called as Britons, and they spoke language, a form of language called as Celtic, and there are still these languages being spoken. That is, we have Scottish Gaelic, we have Irish, we have Welsh, and Manx, Cornish. So these languages are still being spoken. So what happened to these people? Why are we not speaking this language instead of English? Because of the invasion of the island from the mainland Europe, these people, the Britons, fled to the hills of Wales, Cornwall, and Scotland. So here, they fled to the Scotland is over here, and they fled to the area here. There it is Welsh and Cornwall. So who are these invaders? These invading tribes from North Germany consists of these people called as Angles, Saxons, and Jutes. So Angles came from northern Germany, Jutes came from Jutland. Also, other groups called Frisians and Franks came, but these people were the ones who established. Even the Jutes are not remembered anymore. The language spoken by the Angles and Saxons together came to be known as Anglo-Saxon. Um, and later it is now become what is known as Old English. So the Angles, the Saxons, and the Jutes. Here's a picture of those people. Um, the Anglo-Saxons, why did they come to England? Was that these people were living in North Germany and Jutland, where there was always a lot of flooding. The lands were flooded. They were not able to grow enough food. There was always poverty. They were not able to sustain themselves, so they came looking for land. And whole families, they crossed the North Sea in small boats with the whole families with their weapons, and they even brought their belongings, their farm animals with them to Britain. And then finally they found many villages in Britain. They were happy living there. They did not fight with. They initially they pushed away the Britons, but they were happy with the place that they got, and they lived there. And the dialects, that is, in the northern area we have what is called as the people spoke what is known as the Northumbrian dialect. In the uh, eastern side, what was spoken was the Mercian dialect, and in the towards the southeast, towards the place where Kent is right now, Kentish was spoken, and then towards the west, or the area known as West Saxon, Wessex, or the Wessex dialect was spoken. These were the major dialects, the four major dialects, but one of these dialects became more popular than the others, more important than the others, the Wessex dialect of the West Saxon region. The reasons are that West Saxon had the most highly civilized kingdom, and it had an ordered system of government. Another reason was that the literature of the time was written in this dialect. The literature that we still know of, that is Beowulf, extant text, the existing texts of that time were written in this dialect. As you have in Beowulf, and then you have Anglo-Saxon Chronicle written by King Alfred, and then we have the translations of many religious works, Kenilworth's works, Caedmon's works, everything was written in the Wessex dialect. So, what is the chief legacy of Old English to our English, the modern English of today? What has it left for us is that what is known as doublets. That is, these doublets are two words which are slightly differentiated in meaning, but they originally come from one word. They are the dialectal variant of one word. Example of this is dent and dint. We say that there is a dent on the car or a dint in the car. Both of them have a similar meaning. Another example is a road and raid. They both are also similar in that when the soldiers were going to raid villages or something like that, they would have to make roads, they would build roads, and they would raid the villages or raid the places. So these two words came to have an association. This is the chief legacy of Old English. Thank you.